Okay, I think we are live now. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our weekly webinar. So my name is Gafari Lukman, Lugaf, and I'll be the one to moderate the webinar today. So here with me is our scholar from all the way from Japan, IKELE Chinyere Cynthia. So I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce the name very well. So the topic of discussion in this webinar is Japan fulfilling the bugs in real time. So in essence, our scholar will be exploring graduate opportunities in Japan for us today, and I'm very sure we are going to gain a lot. So immediately, after the webinar today. So, but because of the time, I will quickly introduce our scholar. I don't know. There is an echo. Probably is from hello. Yeah. Don't worry. I will unmute you. I will unmute your microphone back after my introduction. So I'm sorry about that. So without wasting much of our time, I'm going to introduce our scholar. Like I've said the other time, she's scholar Cynthia. So currently she's in Japan. So I'm going to read a citation now, and you will also agree with me that, in essence, so he's worthy of delivering this, topic. So scholar Cynthia is a graduate researcher at Osaka University in Japan, and he specialized, in animal genomics, protein interaction, transcriptomics, and signaling pathways. So scholar Cynthia graduated from University of Nigeria Nsukka, so where she also read animal science and biotechnological engineering. So she's a certified Google digital marketer and in human resources person, as you can see probably from his face, from her face, sorry. So she exudes a lot of energy, which makes her flexible and dynamic to navigating life problem and solving techniques. So she's a scholar par excellence, and an optimistic. She's not pessimistic, so she's very determined and a reserve person filled with dexterity. So currently, she's a student, a PhD student in Osaka University, Japan. So she graduated from the University of Nsukka cum laude. Do you know cum laude? Cum laude, is equivalent to first class. So in Nigeria, a qualification. So she's fascinated by sustainability, circular economy, and sustenance. So which culminated in volunteering schemes with organizations geared towards such goals. So, and one of them is what she's currently doing now. She's giving us lecture free of charge at our weekly webinar without taking a cover. So she's an ambassador. So at VWords, so it's an organization that lends its voice to equity and equality in education. So she's also a representative of Remtech Europe, so which is a biotechnological organization, so which facilitates green evolution and environmental sustainability. And currently is a career development team member at STEM Girls Africa. So yeah, because of the time, in essence, scholar Chinyere motivation, zeal, drive, and curiosity has been inspiring and undealt here. So that's why we, invited her, to this webinar, and I know for sure you are going to join the lecture. So I'm going to pass the microphone to her so that she can probably continue. Our presentation. By the way, could you all see my screen? Hello? If you see the screen, probably you can just say yes. Just type it on your as comment. Anyone? Okay, Scholar Ifeanyi, I've taken the first seat. Thanks for that. I'm going to share the link to our WhatsApp group as well so that other people can join. Okay, permit me again to invite Scholar Chinyere Cynthia to start our presentation. Okay, you can go ahead, dear scholar.
All right. Thank you very much, Luke Garf, for the very
Yeah.
wonderful introduction. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning from whichever sphere of the globe you're joining from. I'm very overwhelmed and privileged to be facilitating this evening talk about Japan and everything you need to know about Japan. So I really chose my slide to be Japan unveiling the box in real time because from the concept of someone who is in Japan, I mean, the experience or the storytelling would be different from someone who is seeing it from a theoretical aspect. So this is more like experience combined with real time scenarios, like more of you guys to learn from my own lifetime experience. And it's a privilege, and I'm really honored to be doing this tonight. So, if you look at the slide, you see I actually used sushi. So, when you talk about Japan, the layman will always say, when you speak of Japan, the first adjective that comes to the mind is sushi. Moreover, they've been rated to have one of the most healthy foods in Japan, aside from the US, and that is why I don't know, but some people attribute it to them having aging population. Like you see, people live very long due to their quality of food that they eat here. So today, I will be telling you like why Japan, why it's really very important that you consider this country as one of your host countries for your dream goals in terms of academic pursuit. So one of the reasons is that Japan is it has a very rich cultural heritage, which could also be seen from other countries as well. This is coming from the concept of if you're a person that likes culture, you like international experience, you like multilingual sessions. So it's a very nice place for you to be. Then the high geographical diversity also makes it very cool. We have about 47 prefectures in Japan, and practically even if they share the same unique language, which is Japanese language, things are done differently in different prefectures of Japan. So that is why the geographical diversity is also a top notch on its own. Seasonal beauty, just in terms of environment, someone who is a nature lover, you know, we have the autumn, the spring, the winter, and all those stuffs. Plus Japan is ranked to be a very safe place, like is known that even one of the top notch, the safest place in the world, you're gonna see Japan as number one. They have efficient transportation system that you could go to wherever part of Japan you want to be. It just takes you on boarding a train or whichever a transportation system, either by air, because they also cultivate what we call timeliness. They are very, very specific and punctual to time. So there is no how like their efficient transportation system wouldn't make you be in love with the great country as well. And then amazing research opportunity, which is the major motive for you coming, aside from maybe you have other motive, let's say business, but for research opportunities, you have the air and ability to be able to reach your fullest potential. And let's not also forget that they are very good when it comes to technology, like technological advancement in terms of tech skills, back end developers, robotics, aeronautics, so many things. Just think of it. Whatever your mind could think in terms of technology, you are willing to find it here and even find expertise that are doing very well in that field. Today's agenda, without boring you, will be talking about overview of scholarship in Japan, then detailed steps for application in Japan, living in Japan, networking and resources in Japan. Yeah, I kind of also used my idea of the design to show part of the things you see in Japan. They have a lot of temples and different kinds of art temple depending on how the purpose of the temple, the sacredness of the temple determines the color of the temple and then the shape with which it's built. Yeah. And then the leaf with one of the famous stuff you see is called cherry blossoms, and that is what I used as part of my design to also denote kinds of elements or naturalistic stuff that could be seen in Japan. So we have various scholarships in Japan. We have these scholarships are arranged in order of hierarchy. Yes, that is what I was saying, in order of hierarchy. And will I say prestigious? Well, permit me to use the word, but in order of hierarchy. So the number one is MEX. MEX scholarship, the acronym is MEX, but the full meaning is actually Ministry of Education for Culture and Tourism in Japan. The MEX scholarship is ranked one of the best scholarship in Japan because MEX scholarship, like benefactors of this MEX scholarship, are people that Japan are in diplomatic bilateral relationship with. For example, if you're fortunate and you're a citizen of a particular country and you get to know that your country have bilateral relationship with Japan, when I mean bilateral relationship, it should be in terms of trades and economics or whatever, then you know that you are eligible for the scholarship. The next scholarship is of have two routes. We have the embassy route and then the university route. Then I will be talking about those detailed in the next slide. The second one is JICA, or aka ABE. JICA stands for like Japan International Consulting Agency. This second scholarship JICA is usually best for people who are in the business sector. Business sector, I mean, already employed people in an organization or a company, and then the company feel that they can invest in you to come to Japan to learn skills that could add up to the company's quota or GDP or MVPs. So they will be like, they will take whatever it takes them to sponsor you to come and be a link to Japan to learn one of their skills, so that when you go back, you also add up your skills to the company. So the JICA is usually for employed individuals. It's based on company Japan relationship. Then we have the Asian Development Bank. The Asian Development Bank is more like, just as, for example, in Nigeria we have First Bank. It can also be categorized as a private scholarship. Somehow 50% private and 50% government. Why is 50-50? Is because 50% is more like private enterprises of all the Asian banks in Japan, and then 50% government because it's an Asian sector. So the government of Japan comes to have a kind of quota in the scheme. We equally have JSPS, Japan Society for Promotion of Science and Technology. We have university scholarship, are more of like private scholarships that are being sponsored by the university independently. Some of them are fully funded, some of them are partial, some of them are grant-wise, whereas some of them are fellowships. Then we have the Student Exchange Support Group. This is more of like a mini internship that is fully funded by Japan. Yeah, and it depends on the universities. Not all universities are signed up for the student exchange support program. It's dependent on the university. If your university have what we call an agreement, yeah, a signed agreement or memorandum of sending their students for internships in Japan, then you know that this could also be something that is very important for you to try out. We also have National Institute of Genetics postdoctoral fellow. I got to add this one because I'm currently in the field of genetics and I have the information, so I needed to share it as well. So this is specifically for postdocs, where you have to walk through your PI and then the host lab to apply for the scholarship. Then the last one, we have the Honjo International Scholarship Foundation. The Honjo International Scholarship Foundation is similar to MEX. The only difference is that the MEX doesn't require IELTS or TOEFL, but then the Honjo, there is strict and stringent recommendation that you have to know how to speak Japanese, because the interview is done in Japanese. And even when you choose your choice of university, you should expect to study in Japanese as well. Then all these scholarship I've really listed, there are a handful of them. So what I did is to categorically divide them into requirements that are needed for all of them. Most scholarship in Japan have similar requirements, and application duration usually coincide to the school system, and then the season of the year. Just like you have in the US, we have the fall semester, the spring semester, the autumn, and the rest. So it's also similar here in Japan. When it comes in terms of requirement, there are three specific stuff that are needed for you to guard yourself with before taking your biggest foot out. And these things are in terms of the personal improvements, the skill set, and then the intermediary. The personal category are seen in source of your resume, your transcript. Why I really tag them personal, because these are stuff you work on by yourself. You don't really need an external party to play a factor in it. So you are the one that have to provide those informations yourself based on your educational history, or based on something you're currently doing, or based on your life dreams and your goals. So they are personal. So your resume, your transcript, your health and personal history. Funny enough, yeah, most scholarship application here requires you to submit your health history, because they are being very, very like sensitive about the health sector here. So they would really want to know your health history before you come in, whether you're really physically fit, or if it's something when you come they will have to take care of you, or you have to register for special or intensive care health wise. So then you also have your achievements and track record. Achievements are things like maybe you wrote a book, or you were an essay award winner, or you graduated top 1% of your class. These are all achievement. Your leadership achievement could also be inclusive. Yes, and then we also have the skill set. Now, the skill set is different from your personal stuff. Your skill set is what differentiates you. Under the skill set, you see language proficiency. Learning a language is a skill on its own, and it could be a selling point for you. It could even be something that differentiates you from the rest of the crowd. Then another stuff is research history. How far have you been when it comes to the issue of research? How much thesis have you done previously? Even if you don't even have any thesis, what do you know when it comes to research? Which volunteering stuffs have you done? Like maybe uh independently deciding to be a research assistant even without being paid to your lecturers could also be top notch for you. It can be something you can uniquely sell yourself. And then you also have adaptability. It's a skill set on its own. Not everybody leaves their homeland and still become sane. Not everybody changes environment and still be who they are. Not everyone like twitch up the hands of time and then still become who they are. So adaptability is also very important for them here. They'll have to check. And then there are also some behavioral stuff during the interview that they're going to ask you. Then the USP is unique selling points. So these are under skill set. Then we talk about the intermediary. The intermediary here now requires how you interact with people, how your personal relationship has been. That is where your recommendation letter comes in. Even recommendation letter has to do with how very well you correlate with individuals, that they could be able to, even at some point in time that you're not even still relating with them, they could attest to you your qualities of being a very good lad, or doing very well in academics or leadership or whatsoever. But recommendation letter don't just come out from anywhere. It comes from people who has known you for series of years. And then you also have relationship and networking. Yes, it's still part of the requirement for you to scale up in this scholarship stuff. When it comes to relationship and networking, it has to do with what do you really have to offer. Yes, because I think the whole game should be pinpointed on you being scalable. The moment someone finds out that you're indispensable, then that is the perfect match for you. So you have to sell yourself absolutely very well, that they see, yes, you're an asset to them, and they could even afford to lose you, but to even get you to be part of them. Then, for this scholarship application, like I said, it usually coincides with season of the year as well as the school system. Most scholarships in Japan, the previous ones I already listed, I listed about 8 of them, have similar correlating times. And that is why you should prepare your Excel sheet, your spreadsheet on time, make hay before the sun shine. Like, make out Excel sheets about requirements and deadlines. Very, very important. Usually scholarship applications in Japan starts June to October, because the school session in Japan usually ends. What is called physical year. So their physical year ends in March. Then from March to another March begins another physical year. So usually the scholarship application trend opens from June, July, August. And the ones that open specific year are listed. For June, we have the MEX embassy recommendation. Remember, I spoke about this MEX having two divisions where you have the embassy and the university. The embassy recommendation is usually May, but since after the COVID, I noticed a very small shift in their timeline. Is now June. And then this embassy recommendation is not static. Like, it depends on your country, and requirements are specific to the country itself. Just like a Nigerian applying for MEX embassy recommendation wouldn't be same requirement for a Cameroonian or a Ghanaian or a Cape Town person applying for MEX. So the requirements and the time durations are different. So permit me to say that the information I'm giving is based on the time zone of Nigeria. Yes. So if actually you're from some other country, you can as well search up embassy recommendation MEX in your country, and then you can see like specific time duration differs across countries. And then we also have the student exchange program. This student exchange program is just like the internship I talked about. They accept students from universities that have relationship with them to come during June, and then they stay for 3 months, June, July, August, after which they go back to the university during October or September for the start of a new semester. July, we have the JSPS fellowship. The JSPS fellowship and Institute of Genetics fellowship are specifically for postdoctoral students seeking for positions in lab. These ones are done by virtue of your relationship with your supervisor, and then also by virtue of you getting a person in a host lab that can accept you for the postdoctoral position. The August, we have the JICA, Japan International Consultancy Agency. Recall that I said that this JICA is usually for employed workers, just like companies in Nigeria or companies all over the world that feels that they really want to invest in their employees, so they can as well send them to go and learn one or two and come back to them to improve their skill sets. So we have living in Japan. What you really need to know about when living in Japan. Let's say you already gotten the scholarship stuff, or even you need to have this idea before coming to Japan. Number one unique stuff is, please disorient any stereotype you have once you land. You know, people sometimes, what really mess up with people's mindset is the fact you already have your mind fixed on one particular thing, a stereotype, or you hear people saying Asians are racist. Having such stereotype ain't gonna help you anyways. Be open-minded and proactive. Be flexible with your mindset and be willing to learn. And then accept things the way they are and seek for the Rubicon in any situation. Yeah, even though Asians are racist, the rest it doesn't generally mean that everyone who you meet is a racist. So having that stereotype alone even negates your mindset, negates your body, negates your mentality, your growth, and everything. So it's better to disorient yourself from any stereotype. And it's good for you to know that 80% of people in Japan should be Japanese, of course, because we are in Japan. Just like they say, when you go to Rome, you behave like the Romans. So 80% are Japanese. So you should also accept their cultural differences. That is why cultural intelligence is also very, very important. So you don't expect, because you're different from the context, people should always see things from your own perception. You should have a very wide range of views. That what if these things are this way? And then 20% are just international students like you. Then when it comes to housing and accommodation is relatively cheap in Japan generally, although some prefectures are expensive by virtue of the commercialization or industry found in those places. For example, housing in Osaka can't be the same with housing in Tokyo, because I mean Tokyo is the capital of Japan. So things, but generally housing is relatively okay. And informations about the housing can really be getting through the university. We have university dormitories, we have university agencies like cooperative society that can help you to find a house, irrespective of the language factor. That's where the cooperative society comes in. Some of them also speak English, although not too well, but it's very good to hold a conversation at conversational level. Their English is perfectly fine. Then you can also use housing agencies to get a very suitable and affordable place. Then food is relatively cheap in Japan. It's one of the cheapest necessity here. So you don't really even get to be hungry that much. You still spend on food, but then for the fact that food is relatively cheap also helps you to still have some salaries or stipends to kept back for some other stuff you want to do. Then we have efficient transportation system for network seminars and conferences. Yeah, why I involve this in is that when you come to display, you should be as open as possible and as light as a bed and as wide as anything. Like your dreams are very realistic. You should dream as large as possible, because you can don't limit yourself only to your laboratory, and don't see the language factor to be a constraint. Yes, you can use SNS sites, social networking sites, to search up for yourself for conferences, international seminars. And funny enough is that 50% of the conferences and seminars I've attended have spaces in their lab. Like that's where you see professors talk that they really need research students, they need postdocs. And you cannot network from indoors. You have to go out to meet people to be able to find that position you want for yourself. So that is why the efficient transportation system comes in. You can leverage on the transportation system to go whichever way you want to go for business deals, for networking, for conferences, for workshop, for symposiums, as much as possible. Then, after you must have finished in Japan, based on what brought you, perhaps academic, perhaps the JICA route, perhaps the internship, what happens after you leave Japan, or what happens if you really want to know if there are other things apart from the academic stuff. There are so many support systems in Japan, which number one involves the visa. Let's say most universities or postdocs or PhD students come here, they finish their program. You are entitled to 6 months visa, they call it working visa, to look for a job within 6 months. It's time specific and could be very like can actually put someone in a very tight corner. But then it's still an advantage on its own for you to look for a job within 6 months. After which the 6 months, if you don't get a job, they have no other ado but to request that you go back, you process your travel plans back to your country. And then we also have career wise. The career paths in Japan, honestly, are stuffs like tech industries. Another thing apart from the sushi stuff I talked about at the beginning of the slide, another thing when you talk about Japan, what comes to people's mind is actually technology and science. So they are very, very good in science and technology, back end, front end, Python, R, COBOL, different. Even as day passes, every night, new web ends, new program, new stack developers, new B2B, business to business, business to customer, new prototype, not stereotype, sorry, come off the market for products and services to be sold. And then we also have English teaching jobs. So because they are not very good in English, Japan is actually a very closed society. Is a closed context. So they're looking for ways to improve their citizens' language proficiency. So sometimes they recruit foreigners to teach their children, not only children, adults, whoever that is interested in learning language. So that also becomes an opportunity for a job role. And then we also have lots of part-time to enable you take care of your time within the time you are waiting for the visa or that you are still doing job hunting. Then on the terms of the academic, we have some laboratories usually offer, perhaps depending on your PI, your supervisor, or also depending on your work output. That is why it's also good to be good. Yes, hard work never go unrewarded. So depending on them, they could decide to hold you back. I mean, I shouldn't use hold back, but the hold back I mean here is they could decide to offer you a postdoctoral position, or they can refer or recommend you to a job. Like most of them serve as an insider for companies. Companies usually come to professors to ask them if they have a very good student that can be very good for their company in terms of R&D, research and development. So they can offer you a postdoctoral position, or they can refer you to lab that are very good, or they can also offer you research assistantship to help in teaching lectures to undergraduate students, which also in itself is a job role on its own. Then let's talk about the language. The language in Japan is Japanese. There's no two ways about it. So it's something that has to do with individuals. If you think learning a new language is very hard for you, then you should find an alternative. You either leave or you stop complaining, or either ways you have to learn it. Or even if you don't learn it, you just learn how to deal with the system. And that even makes it comfortable for you. Then resources for looking for job, there are so many resources for looking for job. We have Daijobu, we have Arigato, we have Job3 Japan, we have Japan Job Rec, we have ALT, Assistant Language Teaching Sites, JPOT. There are so many resources, believe me, to look for jobs. And another will I say, tip is that although most of the jobs in Japan require Japanese language proficiency of N1 level, yes, the language proficiency is usually graded from N5 to N1 level, like in decreasing order. So that means the N1 means that you're super proficient in Japanese, whereas the N5 means you're just conversational level or basic level. Although most of the job stuffs require Japanese, so that makes it that you have to be highly competitive for the little jobs that are left for foreigners that are in English. That's why your profile really have to be very, very strong for you to land a job. But it's similar everywhere. There is no one who lands a job out of sheer sitting down and not doing anything. So it's still similar everywhere. But the thing is that the rate of unemployment could actually be, on a scale of 1 to 10, unemployment here is actually 2. So most times when you see people job hunting, they definitely, in most scenarios, they have find one or two some stuff to keep them for the time being until they get to their required ideal job they wanted for themselves. So that's on its own is also a very good tip for you to know. Then networks, how do you network? How you can network? We've been talking about job, the visa, the academic, the career, the language, the resources. Now, I think networking also plays a very specific role in this. It becomes a woven net that keeps them together. And nowadays, we are in digital era. To network is even very easy because from the concept of your house, you can reach someone in France, have a Zoom call, exchange email. Yes, so that is why networking is very paramount. And there are so many ways you can network. We have LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a career optimization tool where you get to sell yourself and show what you also do. Even if you don't get to sell yourself in LinkedIn, because not everyone has this content writing or storytelling ability, please always find the time and opportunity to follow people you wish to be like, read people's profile, reach out to people's DM. Just challenge yourself, have that got to a day you connect to somebody who is new, someone who who does something you want to be. I think that brings you a step closer to your dream and who you want to be. Then other networking sites we also have, we have, like me, I'm a MEX scholar, so we have MEX association. So it becomes very paramount that you identify with societies. Very, very important, extremely important. Identify with society, register with societies. Apart from MEX association, I also belong to Osaka University International Student Association. You can never tell the extent this association and organization can help you. Even over a cup of coffee, a friend can recommend you for a very vital role, and that's just it. Another networking site you can also see is attending conferences. Like I said before, most PIs, although some of them reach out to job industries to tell people that they're recruiting PhD, but you get one-on-one research opportunities by attending conferences and seminars. It doesn't matter even if you need to fund for these conferences, but in most times, with the help of your supervisor, you can get 50% discount on your travel plans or even reimbursement from the university. It depends on your university as well. And very, very important that you research on these things and find out informations by yourself. So that's it. By networking, you have joining association, LinkedIn, attending conferences and seminars, having a study group. Just always make sure you meet people and network. And whichever time you meet people, always have a goal in your mind. And another thing that can also encourage networking is maybe if you have a skill of keeping up with conversation or giving feedback after meeting people. You can always also have your cards. That's what they call introductory cards. You make sure you always have these introductory cards wherever you are. Even in a coffee bar, you meet a new friend. Hello, hi. You share your introductory card. You never can tell. Messages travel very wild. So that is it. And then I will end this session by really saying that one, you have to remove the concept of stereotyping. Just have an open mind, cultivate on an open ground, have different perspective and versions about life. I think that way it limits some unnecessary negative energies from you. And then when you come to a place, cultural intelligence is very important. You study the society, the structure, how things are being done, the miasma. You study so many things. And here we have so many do's and don'ts. I didn't even talk about that. Here, let me take, for example, specific do's and don'ts in Japan is that you don't enter a train and you sit down while an aged person is standing up. It's seen that you're a rascal, like you are not that morally trained. So normally when you see an aged person or a pregnant woman, you have to stand up for them to sit down. Another similar one is when you eat with chopsticks, you don't cross your chopsticks together. You must keep your chopstick parallel, standing straight. When you cross it together, is a taboo in Japan. Crossing chopsticks together shows death. So you really need to understand these things very well in a societal context. There are so many. The another doors is that you must always genuflect. Ohio gozaimasu, you bow down. Whether you're is not even limited to gender. It's irrespective of gender. Whether you're a man or a woman, that is how the society is framed. And these things are understand that these things has been run thousands of years, even before you came to the place. So by virtue of being whoever you think you are, you don't come to a place and start disrupting the system. So you have to understand how things are being done, and that will even help you. It's going to help you a very lot. So I will end by saying stop dreaming and start doing. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Scholar Cynthia, for the excellent talk. So I will also start by saying you should don't stop dreaming, and you should start dreaming now. So in essence, what we've been, the essence of all these is to make you consistent, so to make you committed, so that you don't scholarship opportunity pursuit. And like our scholar have said, you have to be optimistic, don't be pessimistic, and don't stop dreaming. So start doing. So you have to apply today. So I want to believe that by this time of next year, so you are going to join Scholar Cynthia. So in here at the moment. By the way, can you still hear me? Sorry. So we have a lot of questions here, and first question here was from Scholar Kende Stephen. So, I mean, Scholar Stephen asked, he said he's interested in genomics for his PhD study. So, and he studied ruminant nutrition in both first and second degree. Then he's asking whether he's going to find, I mean, a space for his PhD program in Japan. So, over to you, ma.
Yes, Scholar Stephen, you can find a PhD program in Japan, but while searching for a PhD program in Japan, I want you to really tailor your search based on what you really want. And your PI, that's the supervisor, the kind of laboratory you are going. Let's say, for example, by virtue that I'm here, doesn't really, although I'm learning Japanese, I can speak to some extent, but doesn't necessarily mean that I speak very fluent Japanese. So that was part of the things I looked out for. I wanted a lab that had, to some extent, some great percentage of international experience, and then they could equally like converse in English. So that became the top notch for me. And then secondarily, also like the field I wanted to be like in genetics. So if you find nutrigenomics, perfectly you will. In short, in Japan, aside from tech skills, the second career development that is really going like wildfire is stuff that had to do with RNAi interference, the field of genetics, whichever fair, whether nutrigenetics, plant genetics, molecular genetics, cell biology, transcriptomic bioinformatics, they are very, very good in it. And they are very good in it is not by virtue of only expertise. It can also be attributed by they also have the equipment, all those molecular cloning equipment, sequencers, Takara, Biotech, Biorad, they have sumptuous equipment for you to run whichever analysis and experience you want to run. So if you find the field perfectly, there are PIs that offer the field. But what I really want you to also consider is whether the lab you're going to is friendly. Friendly, I mean, you are not going there for jokes, but you should mean like conducive. That's the word, conducive to aid your growth as a person. And also, if the language, if you are not really into like speaking Japanese, if you can make do with the lab speaking Japanese. Yes, very important because most people sign up for I'm speaking from experience. Most people sign up for their program, they come here and then they find out that everything is taught in Japanese. Some of them don't really give up, some give up, but some of them don't give up. But the few that don't give up, when you listen to them, they they actually point and pinpoint that one of the mistakes they made was actually not going through the lab's profile properly before coming. So it's very, very important that you watch out for that. So
Okay, yeah, thanks, Scholar. And before I ask the next question, Scholar Obigo Ivianye, thanks for joining us. Scholar Muhammad Hussein, Scholar Abduwasi Adebayo, so you are cited. Thanks for joining us. Scholar Taufik Abdurrahman, so thanks for, and Scholar Stephen. So, Scholar Cynthia, Scholar Stephen has another question now, but I think you've covered it during your lecture. So he was asking for the requirement documents for PhD program in Japan and the application timeline. I think you have to refer to the to our slide. So she did share a slide to us, and we've uploaded it on the HISF drive. So feel free to go and download it after the lecture so that we can take another question. Okay, scholar, there is another question here. So someone was asking whether sending a code email to a professor in his field before starting application is necessary. Can they just proceed to the application so without requesting for PhD supervision or searching for supervisor? I don't know if you get the question.
Yeah, I understood the question. Sending a code email to professor is specific to the type of scholarship you are applying. Remember, I shared about 8 handful scholarships. For the MEX scholarship, actually, we have the embassy recommendation and then university recommendation. Sorry that I didn't buttress very well on the university recommendation. The university recommendation is actually the route in MEX where you have to send application by code emailing. That's for university recommendation. Embassy recommendation doesn't have anything to do with code emailing. You run your stuff, you apply, you forward it to the embassy. When the embassy approves of it, they call you for interview or examination. When you're shortlisted, you choose universities that you want to attend, and then the embassy places you on one of the universities. That brings you to the end of the application. But in contrast, the university recommendation, that is why it's called university recommendation route. So the whole 90% of the whole application is dependent on the supervisor accepting you first as a student that they want to supervise. So you could email them, send them your research proposal, what you intend to do in the lab, and how you think their research line coincides or synchronizes with your career goals and development, and what you intend to also learn from him or her. So that's where the code emailing comes in. Once the PI accepts, then he can now send you documents to fill as a university recommended scholar, and that's end it. So whereas the embassy recommendation doesn't have anything to do with PI, the university recommendation is 90% dependent on code emailing the PI, and then the PI's acceptance starts off you being recommended as a university MEX scholar. And both of them run separately. The embassy recommendation is usually June, whereas the university recommendation is usually October. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks, scholar. Another question here, but I think it's related to the question you just answered. So, scholar Jamil Jalal asked whether you need the consent of a PI to apply or gain admission for the MES scholarship.
You don't need the it depends. Like I keep saying, the MEX scholarship is divided into two routes. We have the embassy and then the university. The embassy, you don't require the approval of the PI. Everything is run by the embassy being intermediary between you and the Japanese government. But then for the university, it's done directly through the PI. You cannot get a university recommendation without an approved PI approving that they would be the one hosting you in their lab. I think that's what makes the difference. Then some other scholarships, specific private scholarships in the university, you also need to get a PI approvable before. The
Okay,
only
yeah,
the only I think the only one that doesn't require approval of PI is MEX, but embassy MEX. Then almost every other, okay, embassy MEX, and then Honjo Foundational Scholarship. Even student exchange support program doesn't require PI. Just your university and the university you're coming to. So other stuffs require PI. JICA is between the company and Japanese university or Japanese company. So the only one that requires will I say supervisor is MEX university recommendation. Yeah.
okay,
I
yeah.
hope
Thanks
that's
for the clarification, scholar. So we have 5 minutes to the end of the webinar. So, but I still have two questions here. Probably I should just take the two questions together and you can pick them together. So, Scholar Fayemi asks whether, I mean, for the link to the university, I think you stylishly mentioned them during your slide. I will ask Scholar Fayemi to refer to the slide. It has been uploaded on the HISF drive. And the last question, someone was asking for the possibility of staying in Japan upon the completion of the program. Is that possible, ma'am?
Is very possible, extremely possible. That was why I mentioned about visa route, and the possibilities I gave were on the basis of job. You can only stay back by having a job, and they can assure you that you have to get that job within 6 months. Otherwise, you have to find your way back to your home country. And then the jobs and career perspective here are relatively steady in terms of tech, skills, English teaching jobs, part-time jobs like KFCS, restaurants, baker, or like there are so much part-time job. And one thing I want you to also know that whichever job it is, there is dignity in labor. That's one thing people fail to know. Whichever job that puts food on your table, you should be proud doing that job. So part-time jobs are very handful. Serving in a cafe is also a part-time job and could fend for you for the meantime while you still wait to get the big job. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much for the clarification. I think because of the time, so we'll be ending the webinar for this week. So we implore you to kindly subscribe to HISF channel if you've not done so, and share the lecture to your friends you think might benefit from, I mean, the precious information Scholar Cynthia gives to us. So then, don't forget, you can as well propose topics for our weekly webinar, or if you are keen in giving talks in our weekly webinar, you can contact any of the admins. So for the past lectures, so you'll find the slide on our HISF drive. So as well as you can watch the video directly on our channel. So because of the times, we are going to stop here. And again, we still for the entire HISF. So we say thank you to Scholar Cynthia so for his time and for doing justice to the topic. So we know, so when the time, probably when we invite her next time, so we are going to accept our invitation. Thank you very much, Scholar.
Thank you very much. Took for the time. Thank you.
Okay, so we keep in touch, madam.
Okay.
So that's the end of our webinar today. Bye bye.
All right. Bye.